Do you know what is one of the hardest things to get into when watching speedruns out there? Understanding what's going on, especially when it comes to the Zelda franchise. It has so many glitches that most of the time you don't know what's going on and it's just too overwhelming and you don't want to watch it. Well, what I decided to do today is take one of the fan favorite Zelda games in the franchise, which is Twilight Princess, which usually is a 3 to 4 hour long speedrun, and condense it down into a simple 1 hour video with full commentary and visuals, so you'll be able to understand every single glitch that goes into the Twilight Princess speedrun. And please do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, because editing 1 hour long videos takes a very long time, so I would really appreciate it. But either way, let's get right into it. Alright, so let's start this speedrun in 3, 2, 1, go! Alright, so immediately, once we start the speedrun, we are immediately going to be skipping all the intro cutscenes, because in this game, you can skip about 99% of all cutscenes by just simply mashing the start button. Now, you're going to notice that my route is going to be very different compared to how you would usually imagine a early game speedrun to go. What we are going to do is we are going to decide to pick up this rock and run over to this gate right here. Now, normally you cannot leave this area early without doing a bunch of the side quests, like getting a fish, bait, and then, you have to rescue the cat, and, have to get the slingshot, among many other things. But we're going to skip all of that by placing a rock next to this gate right here. We're going to side hop in between the gate itself and the rock, which is going to clip us into the gate itself. Once we have done that, we are then going to go ahead and pretty much bonk the fence, which is going to let us clip outside on the other side. And then I did this weird setup that you just watched. And you can see now, I have a title screen on my screen. I respawn on the bridge. What is happening? So you might be very confused about what just happened with this entire sequence of events. So let me explain. So you see right here this title screen, right? You can see Link with a tunic and Epona. Well, this is an actual save file that the game has, which is pretty much a save file that has been played up to the second dungeon when you first unlock Epona. And it's an automatic input of just a cutscene that's being played in-game of Link, running across, Hyrule Field, the music playing, and the title screen being up, right? What I try and do right there on that bridge is I perform a glitch known as Back in Time, which fundamentally works by soft resetting your console on the same frame that you void out. If you do this 1 frame early or 1 frame late, it will not work. However, if both of these actions are performed at the same time, something very, very useful happens, which is that the game does not clear this little flag indicating that, hey, Link just voided out. So once we soft reset and it puts us back to the title screen, the game is simply going to respawn Link in the title screen. And since he's coming from a respawn and not the cutscene, we actually have control over Link. After that, we simply just jump down from the tower, void out, and then we can now have full access to playing that save file. Now, there's nothing really useful for us to do on that save file, unfortunately. We're kind of locked out of continuing there. But what we can do is we can just save and quit our game, which will respawn us back in the forest where we should be, but we obtain all of the equipment that the title screen Link actually had, which includes the sword, the shield, the tunic, and also Epona unlocked. So that allows us to skip the majority of early game straight away and immediately escape the forest, because I'm sure a lot of you guys know Twilight Princess is incredibly boring in early game. Even if you love the game, I love Twilight Princess. Early game is very tedious, very boring, and has plenty of cutscenes that you just wish you could skip past. Thankfully, this glitch allows us to pretty much skip past all of that. It will also allow us to skip the very first tier collecting as well, which we're going to be seeing a little bit later on. But for now, we're simply going to head over here, pick up a small key, and continue our way over to try and rescue this girl so that we can actually progress to the next sequence of the game, which is to get Epona and then to get the iron boots. Pretty good so far. Pretty good speedrunning movement overall, I would say. 19 out of 20. Where's the last goat? Oh man, okay, we almost had perfect goats. Here you can see a perfect example of a goat being a little bit rogue and deciding to face the wrong direction. There we go. Unfortunately, not perfect RNG right there. But you can see still a quick 2 cycle if he decides to not go sideways, but instead just staying straight. Now, we got the iron boots, and we are on our way to head over to leaving this house. Now, this is when some glitches are going to start to come up, and it's going to sound quite strange. It's going to all make sense later on, at least I hope so. But for now, just also know that I'm going to be setting up a glitch for later. It's going to be using save files. So I'm going to save my game right here outside of Bo's house, and I'm going to keep the save file for the rest of the run. I'm not going to touch the save file. I'm just going to make sure that I have a save file right outside of Bo's house. This speedrun actually uses all 3 save files, so you're going to see it later on. Now, you're going to notice something. Even though I'm less than 10 minutes into the speedrun, we are already going to be leaving the first area, because that is all we have to do and everything we need to collect in the first area. We are immediately right now when going here, going to activate the event that is going to put us all the way over to Hyrule Castle. So that's it. That's all the early game we have to go through, which is very nice, considering how long usually early game would take. Now, there's not really too much to explain in terms of Hyrule Castle. Hyrule Castle is pretty straightforward. You kind of just have to go through it. Alright, now remember earlier how I mentioned that I made sure to save on file number 1 right outside of Bo's house? Well, for setting up a glitch later, I'm also going to save right now, but I'm going to save on my second save file, and it's going to be on the outside right here in Hyrule Castle. So remember that. So there's currently 2 save files that we have in the game. There's going to be a third one later on. It's going to be a very confusing glitch at first, but it's going to be incredibly useful. I quickly just want to say thank you so much, Manscaped, for sponsoring today's video. Now, as you guys know, I've been working with Manscaped for a long time, and they hooked me up with this Perfect Package 4.0 a long time ago, which comes with some amazing products. My absolute favorite, however, is the Lawnmower 4.0 and the Plo 2.0. The Plo 2.0 is a single-blade razor with this amazing protection guard. However, the Lawnmower 4.0 is the product that I personally use the most, and I have in my bathroom every single day, which is this amazing waterproof trimmer. It has a nice rechargeable battery, and has a nice LED to really show all the hair, to know where to cut, and it also has a bunch of amazing shields, so you know you don't accidentally cut your skin or anything like that when using it. And as you might know, April is the National Testicular Cancer Awareness Month, which is something I'm very passionate about since I'm personally a nurse. So if you go to manscaped.com/TCS, you can do the check for yourself page of the website, which allows you to do checks to see for early symptoms for, you know, testicular cancer or anything like that, and just help bring awareness to the cause. And on top of that as well, obviously, Manscaped has some amazing products that are very safe to use down there. So if you're interested in any other products, you can check it out by doing manscaped.com/Linka7, or just use promo code Linka7, or use the code in the description of this video for 20% off plus free shipping. So what are you waiting for? Do it. Check it out. Do it. Do it right now. All right, so now, right here, I have just completed Hyrule Castle, and this is where we're coming up on our first major glitch in the run, and it is so bad. This, my friends, is a glitch known as Sword and Shield Skip. Let me explain. So, normally, when you play through Twilight Princess, you will have never really realized this, but when you're done with the village in a vanilla playthrough, and you want to leave the actual forest right here, you will just go into a Midna trigger that pulls you into the Twilight Realm. But there is a requirement before you can enter the Twilight Realm, which you might remember, which is to obtain a sword and a shield. Now, you might think, wait, hold on, you have a sword and a shield. That is true, but the trigger for checking if you have a sword and shield does not just check for if you have a sword and shield in your inventory, it specifically checks for the wooden sword and the wooden shield, which I do not have, and would lose a huge amount of time to obtain. So I'm going to try to do a glitch right here known as a long jump attack with this wolf. So I lured this moblin over here. We call him Hugo. And this is one of the hardest glitches in the run. This trick alone took me about 8 hours to perform a single time when I was first learning this speedrun. So hopefully it goes well. Unfortunately, that's not great positioning on Hugo, so I'm going to have to try and push him around here. Almost got it. So did you see right there how I did a really long of a jump? That's an actual legitimate mechanic that Nintendo programmed, but we're going to be abusing right here. So when you do a jump attack in Twilight Princess, I'll show some footage on the screen right now. You can see that if you're a wolf and you target an enemy that is close to you, you will do a very short long jump attack. But if the enemy is further away from you, you will do a longer jump attack, which is a very clever mechanic and is very helpful for casuals. However, we are going to try and abuse this right here, because what we try and do is we try and go to as close as possible to this giant trigger on the floor to say, hey, you can't go further because you need the sword and shield. At that point, in the middle of the enemy's attack, I'm going to do a backflip and then do a jump attack to push him forward. And then when he is at his highest point and the furthest away possible, I'm going to do a second jump attack. And if timed perfectly, I'm going to have a perfect angle so I gain just the right amount of height and the maximum amount of speed from a jump attack because he's really far away from me at this point. And it is going to allow me to jump over the trigger. So let's see if I can do that right now. Right there. So you can see right there that I jumped right over the trigger. And you're going to see that instead I activate this next cutscene trigger. That's because the trigger that checks, hey, do you have a sword and shield, is only a ground trigger, meaning it only gets activated if you stand on the ground. While a cutscene trigger, which is what the cutscene is of Midna pulling you through into the Twilight realm, is a cutscene trigger. The cutscene trigger extends into the air, meaning that if I can get far away in midair and I hit that cutscene trigger, it will take priority before I actually hit the ground trigger. And by so, I can then skip obtaining the sword and the shield, saving a huge amount of time and completing our like little circle, if you may, of actually skipping the early game itself. Alright, now, what you're going to see after I take down Dark Beast is right here, this little cutscene telling me, hey, go and collect all the Twilight and the tears. Yeah, no, we're not doing that. Unfortunately, we do have to collect 2 out of the 3 tiers. I'm going to explain to you later why. But thankfully, the very first tier collecting here in the woods can be skipped, so it's not too bad. I know we just performed the major glitch to be able to escape the forest early. However, another major glitch is coming up right now, which is the biggest reason why people prefer to speedrun the GameCube version over the HD version. There are a couple of glitches that differentiate the 2 versions. For example, back in time that you saw me perform earlier to get the sword and shield early and the tunic and stuff. That is not possible in the HD version, but the biggest glitch that makes the routes very different is early Master Sword. Early Master Sword is exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to get the Master Sword early. This is unfortunately patched in multiple ways on the HD version, but does work on the GameCube version. So, I'm going to come up on that right now, which is going to come up after I do this jumping sequence and I get up to these Dark Beasts. Now, like I said, this is an incredibly difficult glitch, so this may take me a couple of attempts to pull off, but pretty much, remember earlier how I mentioned how long jump attacks work and depends on how the enemy is located, depending on how you jump? Well, I'm going to use that in a different situation here. Here, I'm going to line myself up with this texture right here, get this Dark Beast, hope he does the right attack, you have a 50% chance on it, and then try and time it correctly. Pretty much, when you do a long jump attack, and you do when you do a targeted attack, I should say, by holding in the B button with Wolf Link, you're going to jump towards the damage source of the Dark Beast, which is his hand. So if it is an overhead attack by putting his hand upwards, if I release my B button with a perfect angle at the perfect time when the hand is at the top positioning, I'm going to jump towards his hand. And if angled correctly and if timed correctly, it will put me up on this little ledge up here. So let's see if I can pull it off. There we go. All right, so when you get a perfect angle, you can jump up here and you can walk in this weird out of bounds area. Then I'm going to walk all the way up here, and then once I'm up here, I'm going to just simply do a jump. And I'm going to jump down here, and I'm now onto the Lost Woods, which is where you obtain the Master Sword, and that is how you do early Master Sword. And as you might know, the Master Sword unlocks a lot of features in this game, including changing in between Wolf and Human, warping anytime you want, among many other things. Now, this is going to be straightforward, not any really special glitches or anything like that. I'm just going to kind of run through here and just kind of try and collect Skull Kid. And by so, in about half an hour, we already have the Master Sword, which usually would take casuals a couple of hours. So, yeah, pretty good early game. Now we're going to go through one of the rare cutscenes in the game that is non-skippable, and then we will get on to some more exploitation of the game. So now, you're going to notice immediately the advantages of having the Master Sword early. We're straight away going to be using a warp, which you normally would not be able to do, and we're going to be able to switch back and forth between Wolf Link and normal Link, which is going to be using in a lot of different situations. Now, This is going to be one of the most confusing glitches I think I'm going to pull off in the speedrun. It's coming up right now. It's kind of referred to as boss flags. It's quite a complicated glitch, so I'm going to go ahead and like kind of overly simplify the glitch itself, and I'm also going to do it kind of step by step, so you have a little bit more time to comprehend what is going on with the glitch. So, remember earlier how I said that I set up 2 save files, one outside of Bo's house, and then one at the outdoors area of Hyrule Castle? Well, right here, I'm going to be saving a 3rd save file, which is going to be on my 3rd save file right here. Now, once I've saved here, I'm going to go back to the title screen. And this is where the glitch comes into play. So, first, the purpose of the 2nd file, which is what I'm going to load first here. The only reason for my 2nd file is so that I have an easy place where I can super quickly void out. Because remember, to perform the back in time glitch that I did earlier, you have to be able to void out. So I'm going to stand here, and I'm going to side hop and void out and perform back in time. Alright, so now I just perform back in time, and I respawn on the title screen. And you can see that if I press A here, I'm going to go into file select, right? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump off here, and as I'm voiding out, I'm going to press A. Did you hear that? Ah! That was because he voided out in the title screen as I opened up the file select. So now, Link voided out while I open this file select up. Now I'm going to load the first save file, which is going to take the coordinates of where the first save file should spawn you, but it's going to take the map of the 2nd file I just died in. So remember, the 2nd file was in Hyrule Field, right? But the first one is on Bo's house. So you can kind of imagine it takes the positioning of the first file, but it takes the area of the 2nd file. So by loading this now, I'm going to spawn into a boss fight. Now, I'm going to start a soft reset and spam start. So, what I did right there is I started soft reset in my game, and as my game was voiding out, I spammed start, which skips the cutscene. And once you've skipped that cutscene, you will simply be spawned into a boss fight. And this is where the boss flag glitch comes into an effect. To very much simplify it, imagine that anytime you enter a boss fight, the game activates a boss flag trigger, right? Indicating, hey, Link is currently in a boss fight. And by doing that very, very complicated setup that I just performed, the game just simply sets that flag. But it had no opportunity to remove that flag whatsoever. Because normally how it would be is you enter a boss fight, it activates, bam, here's a flag. Yep, he's in a boss fight. Then when you complete the boss fight, right, it removes it. But due to what I just did, it had no opportunity to clear out that boss flag trigger that I just activated. So right now, the game has a constant flag set internal in the game saying, yep, he has the boss flag trigger. And that is going to be very useful in 2 different opportunities. The first one you're going to notice in a couple of minutes when we enter the first dungeon of the game right here. So now, when I enter the first dungeon of the game, right, how normally the progression would go in this dungeon is you come here, you have the slingshot, you go through the dungeon, you get a bunch of monkeys, and then you go ahead and rescue them. After rescuing all the monkeys, you can build a bridge, you can get the Gale boomerang, and then you can go ahead and progress towards collecting the boss key, heading up towards the boss room, and, then defeating the boss. Now, due to the glitches that I performed earlier, I don't actually have to complete the boss whatsoever. There's nothing that I obtained from beating the boss, so we can't completely skip the boss due to back in time and early Master Sword, which is a glitch that I performed earlier. But we do still want to obtain the Gale boomerang, because the Gale boomerang is the most broken item in the entire game. And this is where the boss flag first comes into play. Remember earlier how I mentioned that the game kind of thinks that I'm in a boss fight? Well, in this dungeon, if you think about it, the only way that I could have a boss flag trigger is if I've already progressed up to the boss fight in the dungeon. Meaning that when I open up this door right here, and the game sees that I have the boss flag, it is going to spawn all of the monkeys and allow me to instantly build the bridge without going out of my way to pick up every single individual monkey. So the entire thing just gets completely skipped, saving a huge amount of time. And there you can see your first kind of beautiful execution of boss flags. All right, and we have now just obtained the Gale boomerang. And you're going to be seeing the Gale Boomerang used throughout literally the entire game from now on. There is not going to be pretty much any areas in the game whatsoever where we will not be using the Gale Boomerang. So immediately, like I said, once I get the Gale Boomerang, I'm going to save and quit to get put back to the beginning of the dungeon, and I'm immediately going to leave the dungeon and warp out of here, because there's nothing else that I need to obtain from this dungeon whatsoever. Now, you cannot normally leave the forest, because you remember earlier when I tried to enter the Twilight Realm, there was a giant Midna trigger that was telling me, hey, you can't leave, you need the sword and shield. Well, there's the pretty much identical thing right here with, hey, you can't leave the forest, you need to, complete the Twilight and beat the dungeon. But with the Gale Boomerang, I can perform the long jump attack glitch that you saw me do with the wolf earlier to do it, but anywhere. So I'm going to get into a bit more of a lengthy explanation here, because you fundamentally need to understand this glitch to understand the remaining rest of the speedrun. It is the biggest skip in the entire game. So, how does Gale Jump work? When you have the Gale Boomerang out and you throw it away, or you target something far away, you will simply do a jump slash. And just like Wolf Link, if something is further away from you and you're targeted onto it, you will jump much further. However, you will know that the Gale Boomerang, for example, let's say right here, right? I'm going to target this floor right here. Oops, that's the pillar. I'm going to target this floor over here. This is a floor, not an enemy. But you can see I still did a huge long jump. So what is that about? Well, there is two incredibly broken mechanics in relation to how the game determines Link's speed when you target with the Gale Boomerang, which is if you target something that is above you or if you are over a void. So I'm going to show some footage on screen right now of me targeting a fence and doing a jump attack, and you're going to see that I'm pretty much just going to jump in place. I'm not going to go really far at all. On the next cut, I'm going to target above the fence so that the Gale Boomerang is above the fence, meaning that the ground that is the Gale Boomerang is over is above where Link is standing. And you're going to see that I get launched way further. You're also going to notice that if I show you throwing the Gale Boomerang over this void and I do a jump attack, you're also going to see that I jump way further as well compared to what I would normally do. And that's fundamentally how this glitch works. So by using very clever setups and by making sure that the Gale Boomerang is above Link or on out of bounds sections and stuff like that, I can pretty much do really long jumps anywhere I want in the game from now on, without having to deal with any enemy RNG or anything like that. And we're gonna head down here and we're going to take these 3 enemies down right here. There we go. After killing those 3 enemies right there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch this cutscene, and this cutscene is going to force me to warp away, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is all okay. So, after getting forced to warp away right here, the speedrun is really going to start to pick up, and I'm going to start going pretty much all over the overworld right here. Once I've been warped back, what I'm supposed to do is warp to this forest, go to pick up the bridge, and warp the bridge over to repair that entire structure. Now, due to sequence breaks, I actually can't do that. To be able to warp it away, if I remember correctly, you have to actually collect the tier collecting, which, it takes about 8 or 10 minutes. So we're not going to go ahead and collect any of the tiers whatsoever. So we have to figure out a way to get across that entire gap without using the bridge, which I think you might start to figure out how we're going to do that later on. But for now, we're actually going to kind of forget about it and go ahead and try and collect some other items for now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to escape the forest once again, and we're now instead going to head over to Zora. Because one thing that we really want to make sure that we obtain as quickly as we possibly can is the Clawshot. Because the Clawshot is a very useful item and is necessary to beat the game. Now, normally in the vanilla game, I couldn't access that area yet. However, one of the actual easiest sequence breaks in the game is coming up right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to target, I'm going to get this angle right here, and then I'm going to simply just attack this fence and side hop. And while it's jiggling back and forth, if you side hop at the correct time, you can just get right pushed through. Then here I'm going to listen for my disc. Once I hear that my disc starts spinning to load this next area, I'm going to turn into a human and immediately skip this cutscene. And then I'm going to jump down here and jump down to this giant kind of pond, if you want to call it that, or river, whatever you want to call this area. So this is where another really tricky glitch comes into play known as pillar clip. So I need to actually access the Zora's area, but I don't have any of the items necessary to get into the Zora area because I don't have the Zora tunic, I can't go underwater, I don't have water bombs, so we're going to be having to use a lot of glitches to try and pull this off. So I'm going to do the C-up method, I'm going to swim forward, and here I am now in position. So, I hope this works. If not, there's a backup I can do. But pretty much what I'm going to try and do right here is if I have the correct position and lineup, which is very difficult to tell because I'm in water, what should happen right now when I drop down, I hold target and forward and have iron boots on, is I should have a perfect position lined up to the pillar against this left side of this wall right here. So, let's see if we got it. So, right here, we're going to unequip the iron boots. We're going to start swimming up. We're gonna talk to Midna, and hopefully this is gonna pop us a little bit upwards. Bam. Now we're gonna... Unfortunately, we got stuck in place. So, what the idea with this is to try and clip out of bounds. You can see I almost got clipped out of bounds right there. Like I said, it is incredibly precise, and you're gonna notice that even once I get the clip out of bounds, which hopefully I get in the next try, you're gonna notice how incredibly precise this is in terms of setup and air. Okay, so we're clipped out of bounds. Now, hope we can make it to the loading zone before we drown. And as you can see, it's very precise. You have a very small amount of time to mess around there without the drowning. I'm talking about actual frames, milliseconds. A leeway right there. But if done perfectly and if executed perfectly, you will just barely make it into the loading zone. And thanks to the glitches that we performed earlier, the game, once we save and quit in that tunnel, puts us into the dungeon because the game already thinks that we have gone past the tunnel due to the flags that we set earlier, which is also very, very useful because if not, I would drown in that next tunnel instead. And now, here comes a good demonstration of some of the really cool movement that you can expect in TP speedruns, if I'm able to pull it off. I hope I can. It's really, really cool, so let's see if we can do this. We're going to target once there. We're going to target right here. Beautiful. And we're going to jump all the way on top of that fence, all the way over here, and then grab the switch right here. Turn the staircase. Beautiful movement right there. Yeah, hopefully that was a little bit of a taste of the movement you can expecting from the Gale boomerang. So with that, we're already over here. We move the staircase the way we need to for later in the dungeon. And we're now going to, unfortunately, get one of the creepiest and worst items / NPCs in the entire game. This is where nightmares are fueled. The Arcos. My good old friends. Hi, buddy. And beautiful. If you time your B-slashes perfectly, you can just barely squeeze out of one cycle right here and immediately get the Clawshot. And with that, that is all we need to do for now in this entire dungeon. Now, there are a couple of more things I will have to do later on, but for now, that's it. We got the Clawshot and we got everything we wanted. So we're gonna start off immediately by saving and quitting to get back to the very start of the dungeon once again. And we are then going to escape through our best friends in the game, the Arcos. We're gonna switch back to Wolf, and we're gonna go over here. Now, here is the swag strat. I cannot promise that I'm gonna be able to pull this off, I'm gonna be honest. But let's see if we can still do it. So there's an out-of-bounds clip that you can do this area. It only saves a few seconds. I'm not consistent at it, but it does look pretty cool. So let's see if we can do this. Ooh, actually got it. Nice. Okay, so by doing a kind of a speed right there, like a speed boost, right as you go in between these two cliffs, it can push you out of bounds without bonking you, because if you bonk with this bird, you have to reset. But if you're able to do it, you can go out of bounds, and it saves about, I think, 8 seconds or something like that. And as you can see, it's also incredibly bright, because you're not supposed to be out of bounds here. But if you put on your sunglasses, you know, you look like a, you know, a cool guy, you know, easy clap. You can breeze through this out of bounds area, go immediately to the loading zone, not have to go through the cave system, and save a little bit of time. Alright, so, after unlocking the warp in Zora's Domain now, and getting all the way up to the top of Zora's Domain, I'm going to warp away and go back to the forest for one last time. And we're now finally, after getting the Clawshot, after unlocking Zora's Domain and doing everything, going to go ahead, and go over to Eldin, which is where another really difficult trick comes up, which is called a Rupee roll. Alright, so now we're back at the top of this area, and as you can see, the bridge is still missing. I cannot get over. This is, however, one of the most difficult glitches comes into play. I'm gonna have to put a lot of focus here, because I am on like a little time limit here. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dig up this Rupee here, and I'm immediately gonna run over here, turn back into human, backflip, take out my Gale Boomerang to pick up the Rupee, Gale Boomerang right there, and then lock it right there. And let's see if we got it. Beautiful. So, you know how in Twilight Princess, this game loves to give you pop-ups saying, hey, you got a Rupee, hey, you got a Rupee. Well, even though it loves to give you that pop-up, there's one thing in Twilight Princess that they were not so generous about, which is how long a Rupee stays spawned on the ground, which is only a few seconds. So that's why I have to rush that and be so fast. So what I have to do right there, and what we actually complete with that glitch right there, beautiful, we just pulled it off, is we do a long jump attack to get on top of that fence. But that fence actually slides you off. And you slide off whatever area you kind of got onto it from. But by digging up a Rupee and then very quickly pick up the Rupee, and then you move it over on top of that kind of like little fence. If you get a Gale Boomerang long jump, you land on top of it, and you pick up the Rupee at the same time, it will delay the animation of Link sliding off the fence by a few frames, which just barely gives me enough time to mash in to get in a roll. Performing this roll is going to put me just barely over the edge to where instead I slide off on the opposite side of the fence compared to where I came from. This allows me to then land on that ledge, maneuver around the kind of fenced area, throw my Gale Boomerang and do a long jump attack, and go all the way over the void, and land on the other side, completely skipping the fence and the gate and the bridge altogether. You will also have noticed, if you're paying a lot of attention and you're a little bit 5-head, that I had some really weird and unoptimized movement after I dug underneath that gate when I was walking into Kakariko Village. And that's because the developers got outplayed. You know all the events that takes place in Kakariko? You know how, like, one of the children right here gets captured by a bokoblin, and you have to get on Epona, and you have to rescue them and stuff like that? That entire sequence of events is triggered by a little cutscene trigger on the ground. And they position that right after that gate. But it doesn't extend all the way to the walls. Meaning that if you very carefully walk alongside the most outer edges of that area, you can completely skip activating any of those events from starting, and you can immediately walk into Eldin or walk into Kakariko and never have to worry about any of it. And now we're gonna do some tier collecting, and you can also see the tier collecting is gonna be very fast and much faster than you might remember because, well, 1, I remember where all the locations are, I'm a speedrunner, and 2, I can go back and forth in between Human Link and Wolf Link, but overall there's not too much to explain when it comes to the tier collecting, so I'm kind of just gonna do a lot of cuts and clips to kind of just get through these tiers. And done. GG, we finally collected all of the tiers from both Eldin and Lanayru, and we are finally done and ready to progress with the game. I am so excited. Yay. Oh man, what a great last half an hour that was. Now, right now, we're going to want to enter Snowpeak to obtain the ball and chain item, which unfortunately is a required item due to the Zand fight later on. But you might know I need to obtain a fish here to complete this sequence. Well, this is where another glitch comes into play that you haven't seen yet, known as map glitch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna warp right here, but oh wait, it doesn't warp me, it takes up this menu. What's going on? Well, here's the clever thing. What I did right there is I unplugged my controller, and then I was holding D-pad right and the Z button at the same time, and then I plugged my controller back in. This is gonna cause the GameCube to input the Z button and the D-pad right input on the first frame the controller is plugged in at the exact same time. So it prioritizes the map, which I then use to click on yes, I want to warp away from here. But the warp gets interrupted by Midna's text. So the game now attempted to warp me away, but wasn't successfully able to complete that entire cutscene. which results in this weird glitch known as map glitch. You can see that I'm going through this deep fog right here, and I'm not voiding out, because normally you would void out if you don't have the fish, and, you know, the Yeti doesn't clear this fog. And that's because of the glitch I just performed. With map glitch enabled, Wolf Link, or Link for that matter, cannot void out under any circumstances. I cannot void out, and also loading zones are now also disabled. So I also cannot go through a loading zone. So if I right now, when I get to the top of this area, try to go through the loading zone to leave this area, I would actually soft lock my game. Now, you might think that doesn't sound useful at all, because that just means I'm stuck here, right? I can't even enter a loading zone. I can't watch cutscenes. Isn't that pointless? Well, that's a bit of a lie, because if a cutscene is activated through a cutscene, it will pull you through, and it will cancel out that glitch. So by playing that song at that wolf statue, it is not a cutscene, it's not a loading zone I'm going through, it's a cutscene that puts me through the loading zone, which does go through a loading zone, and when it reloads the area, it cancels out map glitch, and I can now enter this loading zone normally, completely skipping all of the side quests you would normally have to do to go to Snowpeak, and I can now immediately go up to the very, very top of this area. Now, you might be wondering why I go to Snowpeak, and I'm going to explain fundamentally how the game's triggers works and what you are required to do to complete the game, but believe it or not, beating this dungeon is not required to beat the game. There's not a single flag in this game that actually checks for if you've completed Snowpeak. The only reason we go here, the only reason, is because for one phase of the Xant fight, you are required to use the ball and chain to damage him. Nothing else damages him other than the ball and chain. So we go here just for this single item. Now, that doesn't mean that this is going to be a straightforward dungeon. We are going to be using tons of glitches to go through this incredibly quickly. This should be less than like a 5-minute dungeon right here. So what I'm going to do first is I want to get this small key right here early. So I'm going to target the Gale Boomerang here. I'm going to target it right there, and I'm going to target it a bunch of times here. Then I'm going to do a long jump attack. I'm going to do a second long jump attack. Bam, we get over to the chest early. And we're going to get the small key. I'm now going to jump down and void out. And here's actually a glitch that everyone can perform, including you at home watching this right now. Nintendo is not great at collision in this game in certain areas, and this is a perfect demonstration of that. If you do a jump attack right here, you just clip through the floor. Just like that. Here is where I'm going to be using my one small key. Now, normally I have to kind of cook up this cannon with all these cannonballs to be able to get past this ice monster right here. However, if I'm able to perform a glitch correctly, I should be able to get in to this area without doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get frozen. I'm going to do a jump attack right as he's turning around to get pushed by his collision through the door. And then I'm going to open up the door from behind, go through the loading zone, and I'm now in the boss room itself. But if everything goes well right here, I should be able to just get this ball and chain. We're going to go through here. We're going to go over here to make him throw it. We're going to target his tail. And one cycle. Beautiful. Immediately goes down, immediately get the ball and chain, and we are now technically done with Snowpeak. There are, however, two more things I'm going to do here before I leave with the ball and chain. I'm going to pick up some rupees. This dungeon has a lot of rupees around it. 2 specific 100 rupees, actually. And I will be needing 300 rupees later on so I can buy the big cannon. So we're going to pick up the ball and chain here. Then we're going to go here. And we're going to go into this room. And break this. Pick up the Hundo Rupee. And save and quit to get back to the beginning of the dungeon. Alright, so after collecting a second 200 rupee, I'm going to immediately bring out the most terrifying item in the game, which is the Oko. And he wants to go back to his mama, which we specifically placed out in Lakebed Temple. And this is where we're finally going to go ahead and actually beat the dungeon. That's right, we're finally going to beat this dungeon. There are a couple of things that I'm going to have to do here. So first of all, I'm going to have to drop all my bombs once again, because now when I got my legitimate bomb bag, I'm back to having 30 normal bombs, which is something I don't want to have. I want to have the water bombs. Here I'm going to do something smart as well. Normally, you would have the bow and arrow to combine it with the bombs to shoot these down. But if you take out a bomb and then C up, and throw your Gale Boomerang, the bomb is going to go along with the Gale Boomerang, allowing you to break these stone peaks without the bow and arrow. Then I'm going to go under this waterfall, and I'm going to start dropping all of my bombs, because they instantly despawn once they hit water. Now, here is where the worst boss fight in the game comes up. This boss fight right here is straight garbage, unfortunately. So, this boss fight right here requires you to have the Zora tunic. I don't have the Zora tunic, a bit of an issue. So we're gonna have to use a lot of clever ways to get through this dungeon. First of all, I can't obtain the boss key, which we're going to have to get around by doing this very precise boss key skip. So I'm gonna get on top of this railing here. And then once I'm up here, I'm gonna try and slide down while I am partially inside of this railing. Then I'm going to line myself up with my pouch on my back. Unfortunately, I got clipped back into bounds, but that's okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, clip inside the boss room. Now, here is where things are gonna start to get very spooky. So, I'm actually gonna demonstrate right now. I'm not even gonna do a single cut in the YouTube video. I'm gonna demonstrate to you right now why fighting Morthiel without the Zora tunic is a bad time. I'm just gonna let this entire thing play out, and I will let you get a visual demonstration of why this is a horrible fight. Half air. Half a second away from drowning. As you can see, just making it from the top of the arena to the bottom of the arena almost takes your entire air meter. So you might be wondering, how is this fight even going to be possible to begin with? Well, remember earlier how I showed you an upwards teleportation by doing this bomb trick with water bombs? Well, this is where this clever thing comes into play, okay? So remember, normally you can only take out water bombs if you are standing on the ground with iron boots equipped. So if you have iron boots on, you press the button to take out a water bomb, and then while he's doing his half-a-second animation of taking it out, you equip an item over the iron boots. You are now swimming with the water bomb in your hand. When you drop it, the game thinks that you're at the top of the surface because you in no way would normally be able to kind of be around without iron boots with the bomb in your hand. If you do it immediately, you get teleported up to the top of the surface. But if you wait at least 1 second, when you press the button to release the bombs, it doesn't teleport you to the top, but it refills your air because he thought, hey, he can't physically be underwater because of this. Well, here's the annoying thing, right? Even if I do this trick to get away from him very quickly by after damaging him, I unequip and equip my iron boots to get back to the surface, or to the bottom, I should say. You can see how little spare time I have right here to actually take out my iron boots and perform this glitch. And how Morthiel moves in the water is entirely RNG based. So I just have to hope that I get good RNG with his swimming pattern so that he does not go to a bad location. Also, right here, if he swims in a bad direction, I'm going to drown right here because I'm going to try and do a trick here. Beautiful. First try, where I attack him 4 times, unequip my iron boots, then hookshot him again, and then I can do the final blow attack. And I got really lucky, so that might have seemed like it's a really good, easy boss fight, but trust me, if you watch Twilight Princess speedruns, you will know that this is where, like, I would say half runs die. About 50% of runs die right here to this boss. If you just get unlucky and he swims downwards, that second hookshot misses, you're drowned. If he goes left, you're drowned. You have to either has to go straight, up, or right. And anytime when you go up after, you know, getting water bombs, if he decides to go away from you or upwards, you have to keep going back down, drop another water bomb to get another area fill over and over again. That's pretty much perfect RNG right there, and is incredibly rare. But yeah, this is just a very bad boss fight, and it's just not a fun time to do in a speedrun. But like I said, thankfully we got perfect luck, so that's Morthiel for you. Now, out of the first 3 dungeons, before you get the Master Sword, you can skip 2 out of 3 of them, but due to certain events that gets activated when you beat Lakebed Temple, it is required that you complete Lakebed Temple no matter what, because it is essential. So that does mean we do complete this dungeon. You probably saw we didn't even go to the second dungeon with the Gorons, and the first dungeon we only collected the Gale Boomerang, but we left. And this is also where one of the best songs in the entire game comes up, so enjoy. Please help Midna. She's really sick. Please help us. Beast, get out. What? No, Midna. She needs medicine now. Alright, here's where I'm going to break everyone's immersion in the name of speed, because I'm going to turn into Link to burn the spider web down. And now Midna is fine. And now Midna is sick. Alright, and we are through the sad times of Midna being sick, Chad. We went through Hyrule. We will skip all the cutscenes, seeing any context into what just happened. But TLDR, Midna is safe, Midna is healed, she's all happy now, we're all good, and we can now go ahead. Alright, so now, after completing Midna's departure, and after doing that entire sequence, you're going to see why we did all of that. So, the reason why we complete the third dungeon, and the reason why we actually go ahead and help out Midna there, even though we can skip it technically, is because it does activate the events necessary to go on top of this tower. And this tower has an NPC that will give us a letter, and this letter will allow us to gain access to Arbiter's ground, which, if you don't know, is very important and crucial for the kind of progression of the story and the game itself for Twilight Princess. Because by unlocking Arbiter's ground, you will now have access to the Mirror of Twilight, which is kind of fundamentally like the main story and purpose for the second half of the game. And it will also give us access to an item known as the Spinner, which is also a very useful item to have. So that is why we go all the way over here. I'm going to do all of this right now just to obtain this. So we're going to get the memo. We're going to jump down here. And we're going to head over to the cannon. Show him the piece of paper. And he will shoot us up to Arbiter's ground. Now, once I am over here, and I'm about to enter Arbiter's ground, I'm about to perform a map glitch a second time. So I'm going to unplug my controller. I'm going to hold D-pad right and Z. I'm going to open up the map at the same, try and warp at the same time as my Z button prompt comes up. I'm also here going to safety save, because if I fail this glitch, I will actually soft lock my game. So I think it's quite important to safety save here, just in case. Then, right here, I'm going to equip the Gale Boomerang, and we're going to head over here. Now, the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to want to try and go out of bounds right here. So I'm going to do this setup right here, where I do a sword attack. I get on top of here. There we go. Now, if you're wondering why I activated the glitch known as map glitch, like I did earlier, remember earlier how I said you can't void out if you have map glitch enabled? Well, that allows me to just jump slash underneath this entire map. However, this cutscene trigger right here to activate the boss fight for this area extends almost infinitely downwards and upwards, meaning that by going underneath this area, I am able to get into this boss fight right here. And normally, obviously, without map glitch, I would just void out, because I fell for so long underneath the map. But with map glitch, I won't. But, you know, cutscenes will still progress through the map glitch. So it allows me to activate this fight, and I can start the next sequence of events now. I'm gonna get up on him. And we're gonna start dashing through here. And as you can see, it's clearly a cutscene that's pulling me through the loading zone, so it's all good. And we are now officially at the entrance of Arbiter's ground. Gonna quickly pick up some hearts, because I'm quite low in health. And bam, we're in the dungeon. And we're gonna progress through there. Now, there's a couple of cool glitches and tricks I'm gonna be using throughout this dungeon. But overall, it is still a fairly straightforward, it's still a dungeon. It's like a stereotypical kind of speedrun through a Zelda dungeon, as you might imagine, where, you know, you use certain glitches and skips to skip, you know, small keys or certain areas. But, you know, you still have to go through a lot of it, so we're going to start off kind of normal here. We're going to come up on our first skip in the dungeon itself, actually, though, in this next room. Because in this next sequence of Arbiter's ground, before we access the second half of the dungeon, we have to normally collect and defeat 4 Poes, which goes to all different locations. Now, technically speaking, how these Poes work is when you defeat one Poe, it leads you to be able to go to the area for the second Poe. Second bow opens up the path to the third bow, etc. Now, there is no way to get the third and the fourth bow early, but there is a way to access the second bow without the first one. So we will be doing one bow skip here. So we will only be collecting 3 out of the 4 bows. So at least we can do a sort of a skip here. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna target this area right here. Gonna do a long jump attack here. Gonna hold up right, hold up, mash A. Beautiful, first try. Grab this ledge right here. Do a long jump attack here. And bam, we just skipped the entire first section of the dungeon, and we do not have to complete the first bow. So now we can immediately head over to the second bow by the skip that I just did there. Okay, right here, I'm also going to completely break the second half of this dungeon. Normally, you sink in the sand, but by pressing the B button, by doing attacks, I can stay on top of that surface. And normally, you know that you have to go through, like, pretty much the entire half of this dungeon with the spinner to get this boss key. But by using that little trick I did right there, I can pretty much backwards immediately obtain the boss key. Now, even though I have the boss key, I do still need the spinner to be able to complete this next half of the dungeon. So I will be still going over here to get the spinner. But thankfully, I just skipped the majority of this kind of side of the dungeon. So it should be pretty quick to obtain the spinner by going this way. All right, now, this mini-boss to obtain the spinner. I think a lot of people remember this boss because this is a very annoying boss when you're playing this game casually. However, when you know how bosses work, and more specifically how combos work in relation to enemies, you can make this boss go from one of the easiest bosses, or one of the harder bosses in the game, to one of the easiest bosses. This boss just takes forever to beat. It's so many cycles, because normally how it works is, you know, you press the B button, you do 4 attacks, you complete your cycle of your damage, and then bam, you know, you start the next phase. And you have to do this over and over and over again. But we're gonna skip all of that. So first, I'm just gonna hit him with a hook shot, and then here, look at this. So I'm gonna hit him here, and then I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. Wait a second, 1, 2, 3. Wait a second, 1, 2, 3. Wait a second, 1, 2, 3. And you pretty much can stun lock him. I never complete my animation of 4. And because I never complete my animation of 4, I never give the boss enough time. I never do kind of like a finish attack, which you do if you do 4 attacks in a row. And I also never give him enough time to give him an opportunity to escape. So by doing 3, wait a second, 3, wait a second, you can just continuously stun lock him and take him down in one cycle like that. It's that easy. And we can now go and obtain the spinner, chat. Okay, so now after getting the spinner, I save and quit my game to get put back to the beginning of the dungeon, and now I'm just pretty much gonna backtrack to get to the last part of the dungeon, because I have the boss key, I have the dungeon item, I have everything I need to beat pretty much the dungeon right now. So we're just gonna get through this very quickly. All right, this is for the real fans out there, for all the domination fans out there in Mario Party 4. All right, so after activating this warp right here, I'm actually immediately gonna warp away. I'm not gonna do anything else here. Once I unlock the Mirror of Twilight, I'm immediately gonna leave. I'm not gonna watch the cutscene or activate the Mirror of Twilight or anything. All I care about for now is just simply to have this warp location. So once I have the warp location above Arbiter's Round where the mirror is, I'm immediately gonna warp to Kakariko Village. And this is one of the biggest glitches in the game. So, one thing that is very fortunate for speedrunners is that when it comes to the Mirror of Twilight, right, you have 4 different pieces that you need to put together to, you know, get a proper mirror, right? But the game only checks for the last piece of the mirror because it assumes that you could not obtain the other piece, you cannot obtain the last piece without the other pieces first. But by transforming into Wolf Link at the correct time right there, I can clip through the statue, and I can now walk up to where this cannon is. When I say warp, it's going to tell me, no, you actually can't warp away from here. But by opening up the map, zooming in and then zooming out, I can warp with the cannon, because reasons, it doesn't check for anything when you do that way. It's kind of weird. But if you do that, you can then warp away with the mirror already, letting me bring it over to the lake right here. And I can then use 300 rupees to spend it on an upgrade and actually successfully upgrade this cannon. Now we've got the cannon over here and we've got 300 rupees. We're gonna go over here. We're gonna talk to him. And he's going to tell us that he can repair the cannon for 300 rupees, which conveniently is the max amount of rupees you can hold in your rupee bag, without upgrading, I should say. Well, at least we were rich for like 30 seconds, chat. Alright, and now we're in City in the Skies. Arguably, one of either the coolest or most annoying dungeons in the game, depending on how you want to look at it and how your experience were. I'm going to tell you right now, your experience of beating City in the Sky is going to be very different from my experience of beating it. And believe it or not, I'm going to actually teach you, yes, you watching this right now, how to do a major glitch incredibly easily. This is such an easy glitch to perform that I guarantee you everyone watching this will be able to pull it off first try. So, right here when you enter this dungeon, right? I'm gonna safety save just in case. But when you get to the beginning of the dungeon and you get right into this door, which is the main door that leads to the main area of the room, what I want you to do is turn into Wolf Link. And then, once you're turned into Wolf Link and you're standing in front of this door, all I want you to do is super slowly tap forward on the analog stick until the A button says open. And then I want you to open it. And if you got the glitch correctly, you will see it right now. The fan is not spinning. You see that fan up there? Well, that fan is supposed to spin to avoid you from being able to access that area immediately once you get the double claw shot. However, what determines that fan, for some reason how Nintendo designed this dungeon, is that that fan does not spin immediately when you enter the dungeon. That fan has a trigger to activate it to start spinning, which is laid out right in front of that door. But you can't activate it if you're in an animation. So if you slowly walk up to that door as Wolf Link, and then you press A as far away as you physically can, you never walk over the trigger that activates that fan. Meaning that once you get double claw shot, you can avoid and skip a huge amount of sequences by simply just hookshotting up there. Now, there's another backtrack thing. This is a slightly harder trick, but I still feel like within a couple of attempts, you could also do what I'm about to do next after this. After you go to this side of the dungeon, and you pick up this small key right here, a lot of people might remember that there's an event that's about to happen of a dragon coming over and breaking this bridge. He's going to destroy the bridge that you're walking on here, and it's going to result in you having to do a massive amount of backtracking as well. Well, you can once again skip the dragon from ever breaking this bridge and avoiding all the backtracking. So, here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to have the hook shot or the claw shot in your hand. You're gonna walk up right here. Once you're standing here, you should target and you're just gonna get up on top of this thing. See up and line up your heart with this texture. Then wait for the wind to start blowing. Once it blows, press A and then just mash the B button. And you're just gonna simply do a jump slash and land over here. That skips the cutscene trigger of the dragon spawning in and breaking the bridge itself, which allows you to skip the entire backtracking sequence right there as well. So pretty much all the backtracking that you remember from City in the Skies can simply be skipped by those two simple actions right there. That one, like I said, is a little bit more tricky, but if you save, you can try it over and over again. The timing for the jump slash is not precise. You heard, I didn't even try and time it. I just mashed the B button. And where you aim there is also not too precise. Also, if a lot of you guys were wondering why we don't skip Arbiter's Ground, not only is it to activate the Mirror of Twilight, but because City in the Skies is required to be a completed dungeon, there are multiple sequences like this one where you need to use the spinner. So that's why the spinner is a necessary item. Also, right here, this mini-boss fight is actually a joke if you know what to do. So check this out. So these enemies have a lot of health, right? But if you jump over here, then do a spin attack, they fall down into the void, despawn, and immediately die, skipping the entire fight right there. Now, I'm gonna enter this room, and this room, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of tricky skip. I absolutely hate this skip. It seems like it should be very, very generous. And if you know how, like, grabbing ledges work with the leaf in Wind Waker, you would imagine that it works the same way. Unfortunately, this is like 10 times more precise than it is to do it with the leaf in Wind Waker. So hopefully I get this first try. Sometimes this takes me like 4 or 5 tries to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk off this ledge to get a jump, and then try and perfectly time the A input. Beautiful. To grab this ledge as I let go of him, and completely skip that side of the room. And we're now already over at the mini-boss area. Equip Iron Boots. And here is a mini-boss skip, actually. This is a very slow and tedious mini-boss, but there is a way that you can actually skip it. This is an actual pixel-perfect trick. Thankfully, there's a setup to get the positioning correct every time, but you still have to do you still have to be very, very picky on your analog stick position. So I'm gonna roll down with iron boots, take them off, roll back up here, take out my Clawshot, and right here, oh, first try, beautiful. There is a single individual pixel that is hookshotable, even though it's slightly behind the gate. And if you're able to get that angle, you can Clawshot / hookshot the target, skip the mini boss entirely, and then you can save and quit. And here's the beautiful thing as well. Not only did we skip a ton of stuff with all the glitches we've already done in the dungeon. You remember how the dragon was supposed to break the bridge? Well, the game has set my save flag so to avoid casuals from avoiding the bridge from being broken. Once you open up the small chest, you continue to respawn at this location instead of in the beginning of the dungeon until the bridge is broken. But since I skipped the bridge being broken by the dragon, I respawn here, which is way closer to the center of the dungeon than the normal respawn would be in the beginning where the cannon is. And since I already skipped it, I don't have to worry about doing the skip again, because once you skip it once, you have forever skipped the dragon breaking this bridge. So I can super easily, first try, just get over here, climb these vines, and go into the main room. And like I said earlier, we skipped the fan from starting earlier, meaning that when we get on top of this pillar right here, we can simply just hookshot at the very top and skip this all together. So we're gonna hookshot this, and bam, we're at the top. And what a lot of you guys might know if you played this game before is that the boss key is at the top of this dungeon, so it's not gonna be a problem to get it. Open the door, and we get the boss key. Here is one of my favorite movement sections in the entire run of Twilight Princess. This is an amazing, beautiful movement sequence, and this really shows you the true power of long jump attacks. So, first, by claw-shotting as high up as you possibly can on these fans, you can actually grab the ledge instead of grabbing the part that you actually claw-shot. And I'm gonna walk to the right here, stand here, and then do this. Let's hope we get it. Target there, target here, and look at this. Bam. All the way across. The first one perfectly angles me midway on one of those fans. The second one shoots me all the way forward. Perfect long jump attack. Letting me go to the end and not having to deal with having any of those spinning around. And since we already have the boss key, we can now simply just make our way over to the boss room. Alright, so for this boss fight right here, you might have a lot of fond memories of this boss fight, and you might remember the fact that this boss fight is really, really fun. As a speedrunner, I can tell you right now, this boss fight sucks, because this is actually a side-scroller. If done perfectly, it is the same time every single time. There's nothing on this boss fight that, as a speedrunner, is interesting. As a speedrunner, yeah, there's really nothing to say in terms of strategy here. I'm really just kind of going through it, like, casually, so... Alright, so now, the boss is finally done, we picked up the heart container, and we can now leave City in the Skies. Now, like I said earlier, how this game functions, right, is that when it comes to the Twilight, the Mirror of Twilight, right, it has multiple pieces, right? You're supposed to get, obviously, the first one from unlocking it at Arbiter's Ground, and then there's, you know, one from the mansion, there's one you get from, Temple of Time, and then there's City in the Skies. But since City in the Skies is the last piece of the mirror, when the game checks, hey, has he completed the mirror, it does not look for all of the pieces. It only looks at the City in the Skies one, because the game thinks that there's no way a casual player would ever make it to City in the Skies and get the last mirror piece if he hadn't already completed the other dungeons. So what that means is that if I now go to the Mirror of Twilight, once I've completed City in the Skies and I've gotten the last mirror piece, it will immediately play the cutscene of the entire mirror getting repaired and me having access to the Palace of Twilight. You're gonna see right now exactly that happening. I'm gonna walk in here, bam, there's a cutscene, I skip it by start, and we can immediately go into the Palace of Twilight now. But yeah, just to give you some context into the meaning of barrier skip, let me actually just give you right now a good example. Wind Waker. The world record before barrier skip was found was about 3.5 hours. Post barrier skip, it went to 1.5 hours and is now sitting at only 50 minutes. Even after all of the glitches that we have found at this point right now, if you were to do a no barrier skip speedrun right now with all glitches that's been found in the past 3-4 years in Wind Waker since barrier skip, the speedrun is still about 3 hours. So the length of a no barrier skip Wind Waker HD speedrun is actually about the same length as a Twilight Princess speedrun. So they're fairly equal in terms of how long you have to do it if you don't have a barrier skip glitch. There's not really much to explain right now, by the way. I did get the Butter Sword, which we call the Upgraded Master Sword. There's just really no skips in this dungeon. It's very straightforward. Know what you have to do. Kind of casual playthrough here. There's really nothing interesting to discuss or explain here, unfortunately. Time for the Xanth fight and finish off Palace of Twilight. The Xanth fight is honestly, in my opinion, one of the coolest boss fights in the entire game. I love the Xanth fight. I will say, though, these refights, some of them are not refights, really, because a lot of these bosses we never even beat to begin with, but it's pretty cool. There is only one thing about the Xanth fight that I really hate, or I guess two things. One is more like a middle finger from Xanth, and one is just an annoying thing in terms of speedrunning. Chat, remember earlier how I mentioned that, Morph Eel is one of the worst boss fights in the game because I don't have a Zora tunic and it's an underwater boss? Unfortunately, Xanth has an underwater Morph Eel part. So once again, we're gonna have to do some very precise water bomb strats to be able to survive here underwater. So first things first, we're gonna wait here. Hook shot. Attack, 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 attack. Perform the glitch to get full air. Now here I have to be very careful. So Xanth is about to spawn in 5 different heads, I think it is, or 4. And Xanth spawns in the head that is the furthest away from you. So I'm gonna stand right here on this texture. I'm gonna wait for his nose to appear. Once his nose is fully visible on these statues, I'm gonna walk forward, take out the bomb and do another air trick. That should have been far away enough to now I guarantee that the spawn of the real Xanth and not the fake one is gonna be in one of these 2 in front of me. I'm gonna land. Hook shot, and beautiful, got it. All right. If you're slightly off on that timing and he does not spawn in one of those 2, you're gonna drown and you're gonna have a bad time. Get down from there, Xanth. Also, this is my second most hated Xanth face, not because it's difficult, but because this is, like I said, the middle finger face. Remember, we spent over 10 minutes in this speedrun to go all the way to the mansion and obtain the ball and chain for this single thing right here. Hitting this guy's foot. That's right, that's it. That's the entire reason we go and get this item. No matter what damage source you have, bombs, bow and arrow, anything, you name it, nothing damages his foot except for the stupid ball and chain. And by so, Xanth, thank you for making us spend more than 10 minutes of our lives getting an item just to hit your foot twice. I'm not gonna shame you for being in defeat, but come on, bro, you could have chosen a slightly faster method of going down. Sorry, Xanth. All right, and now when we've completed Palace of Twilight and we defeated Xanth, there's nothing left to do but to go to Hyrule Castle, Chad, and complete the game. All right, now, here is the most important trick in the entire game, no kappa. In the main area of Hyrule Field, or Hyrule Castle, I should say, before I go to actually break the barrier, there's this ledge, and the loading zone extends so far out that what you can do is you can bonk the wall at the same time as the loading zone activates, saving you 0 seconds, but allows you to show off some swag. We got it, so the run is valid. If you missed that, it's an invalid speedrun in my opinion. All right, here's a really difficult trick, chat, to kill all of the enemies. This is really difficult. You have to press the button to take out a bomb, and then you have to stand completely still. Whew. First try, baby. Now, there's a couple of really cool, actually, fight skips in Hyrule itself. So, there's a couple of arenas where you get locked into completing a fight with a bunch of enemies. The first skip coming up is right here. I'm gonna roll right next to this fence, spam the start button to skip the cutscene, hold right on my analog stick. Thankfully, it has about a 1-second delay before it spawns in, and I can skip the arena. You can see all the enemies actually right here that I'm supposed to fight. I'm just gonna say bye, and roll right past them. And here, we are also going to do another little skip right when we enter this area. So I'm gonna open this door up. Here, this one is much more precise than the previous one. This one almost immediately spawns it in and has way more fights than the other one. So I have to actually do a jump slash right here to not move as far in because I can't be pushed further into that circle if I'm in the animation of a jump slash. And then immediately skip it, hold right on my analog stick. And we skip all of those fights right there. We then hookshot our way over here. Jump down here. And enter this door. Now we're gonna light this. Thankfully, you don't actually have to look at the puzzle to know the order and how to do this. If you memorize it, you can do the whole thing by yourself. So it's very quick to get through this puzzle. It's not really a puzzle anymore when you know how to solve it. In this next room as well, I'm going to once again abuse the fact that the enemies, these enemies that have incredibly high amount of health, have a one-hit KO against the bombs. It just goes right through their armor and pretty much immediately kills them. So I'm just going to run up to them with a bomb in my hand. And they both immediately die, and I can immediately go into the next room. And we are now on to the last part of the run. Now we have to do a small little mini-boss fight right here to get the small key. All right, get the small key. Now we're going to make our way over to the big key. Let's go! People I've never seen and have no idea who they are and have no connection to whatsoever, and somehow they have a bazooka in the Zelda franchise. Thank you for helping out. Very cool individuals. We got a gold. Okay, nice. All right. So, coming up here is the last couple of rooms of the dungeon itself. This should hopefully go pretty smoothly if I go the right places. Beautiful. So if you stand at the perfect location right there and then clawshot that lantern and you skip the cutscene at a specific time, you can skip this fight as well, so you do not have to do the last fight, and you can immediately go over to Dark Beast Ganon. Or Dark Beast Ganon, sorry, that's Breath of the Wild. Beast Ganon. And now it is also time for some RNG. So Zelda fight is very straightforward. It's one of the most straightforward fights in the game, specifically when it comes to the Zelda fight. She has 3 different attacks. She can create a Triforce that damages you. She can try and die for you. And she can also do a laser beam where she's left vulnerable. Even with perfect RNG, the best fight you can have on this is a 7 cycle. She is guaranteed to do a specific amount of attacks in between each one of them. So if we get perfect RNG, she will do this attack in 7 turns. So that's 1. So let's do some counts. 1. 2. 3. 4. 5. I think this is 6. All right, let's see if we get perfect RNG. If so, she will do a laser ball right now. Nope. 7. Can we get an 8 cycle? All right, at least not too bad. Sorry, Zelda / Ganon. All right, that should be enough damage. So now we should be able to finish him off with Wolf Link, I hope. Beautiful. All right, now, coming up on the Ganondorf fight section here, this is a part of the fight where I usually call out my viewers. To all the viewers watching this right now, both live and / or on YouTube, a lot of people remember this specific portion and go, this was so bad. They remember how horrible Zelda's aim and AI is here, where Zelda just keeps on missing her shots with this bow over and over and over again, and it's just so bad. Well, I'm here to tell you that unfortunately, there is no AI related to Zelda's aim right here. Zelda is entirely based upon your analog stick position. So wherever you're holding the analog stick is where Zelda will shoot. So this is all related to you. So when you're riding behind Ganon here, wherever you're holding your analog stick is gonna dictate where Zelda's gonna shoot her light arrows. So once I get close enough here, and I can start targeting Ganon here, wherever you are holding the analog stick is where she shoots. So as long as you make sure that you're holding the correct angle, she will hit every time. Oh my, are you serious? I hit the horse again? This is not the fastest fight, unfortunately. Okay, so right there, for example, I actually missed because of how much he was changing his angle. That was not Zelda being bad, that was the fact that I held the wrong analog stick angle. Dude, Ganon, can you please stay still? It's really hard to aim. I like how I'm like, well, if you miss shots here, you were bad. I guess that does, however, go both ways. I am being bad right now. Either way, like I said, it is all done upon how you are aiming. And if you aim like me, then yeah, you miss shots. Imagine calling out all of your viewers for missing and being bad, then missing half your shots yourself. I did it as a demonstration, though. I did it to demonstrate to the viewers how you should not do the fight. And time. GG, 3 hours, 54 minutes, and 25 seconds. There it is. That's how we complete Twilight Princess any percent speedrunning. That's it. And there you have it. There is the longest 3D Zelda game in the entire franchise, or any Zelda game for that matter. This is the longest Zelda speedrun out there, out of any of them, for the any percent category specifically. And hopefully now, you will have gained some more knowledge of the speedrun. First of all, you might have understood that it's not that this game doesn't have any glitches or skips. It has plenty of those. It's just unfortunate that due to the lack of barrier skip, we have a lot of requirements to beat the game. But nonetheless, I do hope that you enjoyed the speedrun, and I hope you enjoyed understanding fundamentally some more of the glitches and how they work, and hopefully you have a better understanding of this in the future. If you want to watch me explain a Wind Waker speedrun, you can click on the screen right now for that, or if you just want to watch a random video, you can also click on that. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well by clicking the button right up above me. But either way, that was going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Later, everybody. By the way, don't forget to check out the daily channel. Links are in the description. Later, everybody. Bye-bye.